So the hook link itself is made from boom material. It's what I use for probably 90% of my fishing now. And just with the 25, or in this case the 35-pound boom on, I just know it's not going to tangle. And I've scaled up to 35 because we're fishing for bigger fish. We don't know what snags and stuff are out there, and it's just that bit stiffer. And with big fish and great big mouths, you know, and using bigger hooks, you can get away with a stiffer material. So that's sliding up and down that lead core leader. I've got a size 11 ring swivel crimped onto one end of it, and then I've got one of the spinner swivels crimped onto the other end. Now you can cut the ring off of the spinner swivel, or now we actually do them just the swivel itself for clipping the hook onto. And fishing with wafters, it's probably better not to have that ring there. It hasn't really got in the way of me getting bites in this session, but if I knew I was going to be doing that at the very start, then I probably would have cut the ring off, just so there's a little bit less weight around the eye of the hook. I'm using a size 4 long shank X, and even the guys that are working with us, some of the crew are like, oh, are you using a new pattern of hook? It's gone so out of favour, the long shank X, that they thought it was a new hook. They'd never seen it before. And I basically used the Gamakatsu long shank to design this hook, whatever it was, probably 15 years ago now. And the thing I didn't like about the Gamakatsu, the barb was really big, so we made the barb much smaller, and the eye wasn't in-turned, so we've in-turned the eye a little bit. But on this particular setup, I've in-turned the eye even more. So I'm just putting it inside the crimp tool and then just applying pressure to the back of the shank and just bending the eye in more, and that just helps it to flip over even faster and catch hold. I'm using one of the new D-rig kickers on that. On a normal hook link, you would keep the taper on the bottom of that kicker, but I've just snipped it off to make it easier to get over that spinner swivel. So what you do when you're threading it on, the large end goes on first, then the thin end. I've already put a micro ring swivel onto it before I do that, and I do push that on before I cut the taper off. It just makes it easier to get the ring of that ring swivel onto there. So once it's onto the hook, I'll clip the hook onto the spinner swivel, and then I'm basically using my t-shirt and the crimp tool to pull it down over the top of the spinner swivel to make sure that the hook can't get off during the battle. And that is probably the hardest bit of the whole rig. I'll wet normally the spinner swivel just with a bit of saliva, clamp down on the pliers really tight, and then just use the friction of my t-shirt to pull it down onto it. And once you've done it once, you can make the hook barbless once you've got the fish in, slide everything off and slide it back onto another hook. And these D-rigs will last 10 fish, 20 fish if you want. You know, they're really robust bits of kit, and I don't like throwing anything away. If there's nothing wrong with it, use it again. Obviously, if the hooks have gone blunt, then I'll be changing them, and I'm not sharpening my hooks at all here. Straight pointed hooks like this long shank X are very difficult to sharpen effectively, and where we've got gravel and stuff out there, I don't really want to sharpen it. I don't want to take the point down too fine. My hook holds have been brilliant. I've landed virtually every single fish on this, and I'm convinced that that kind of setup with a stiff hook link, the spinner swivel, and a long shank straight pointed hook, it just turns so quickly. I think the first time they suck it in, you just nail them. And the bait is a 15mm, it's an IB wafter, which is a brilliant bait on its own, but I've just soaked it in the Isotonic GOO, and that has been by far the best hook bait. If you've forgotten about the long shank X's, put them back into your fishing because they are super efficient.